Thank you.
You're welcome.
Can't believe it's already mid-July.
No, it's going so fast.
Good morning, everyone.
Good morning.
Good morning.
So originally, when I did, I signed up for this webinar, it told me 9 a.m. So I remember logging in, and then I read when it sent it to me this morning, like a reminder, and it said 10 on there, but I already knew it was 9. So I was like clicking on it. I was like, why is it taking forever? And then I looked at it again. I was like, oh, 10. Okay. Mhm.
Jeffrey's at.
And Valerie, do you work for the Bakersfield Arc?
Yes, I do. I'm a transition coordinator here.
Nice to meet you.
And you said it was raining where you're at. Where are you?
It's not right now, Massachusetts, but it's been raining for days,
Yeah.
like crazy rain.
Yeah, we had our fair share of that, like a month and a half ago, and then now it's like super duper hot.
Yeah.
Good morning.
Good morning.
Morning.
There were a couple of videos that we haven't gotten from a couple of sessions.
Yep, we were just talking about that.
Okay, sorry, I did that.
Cassandra's going to help me. I'm a
Okay,
little technology adept.
I'm the same way, Janine. So yeah.
In fact, my phone wasn't working the other day. All that needed to happen was for the person to take my phone out of my office into their office, and then it worked fine. It was just when it was in my presence that it wouldn't work.
Now, I told all 3 of my children not to go into social services. Get a real job, you know. And my 2 boys listened to me, and they both went into computer sciences. So if I have any problems, I just hand it to them, and they just hear Dad, and it's fixed.
Right. Hi, Dale.
Hello, everybody.
Hello. Where are you?
In Tulsa, Oklahoma.
Okay.
Oh, wow.
Yep, doing a training. How's everybody else?
Very well.
Good.
We wait a couple minutes.
Sure.
And Jeffrey, how's the project been going in general, just in terms of, how did it go with the other training that you?
Well, that's coming up.
Oh, it still is. Okay.
Tom Pomeranz is coming up at the end of the month, beginning of next month, and that's really where a lot of the focus is. For the most part, I have met all of the milestones for the project, with the exception of we said we were going to do some community presentations, And I'm now working with the regional center to set up some time to do a couple for parents and consumers. We're doing them in both English and Spanish. And then pretty much I'm going to do a couple more webinars, and that's it for year one of the project. We're pretty much winding down. You know, we were like moving great guns there for a while, and now we're slowing down.
Okay. Okay, good. Well, good. Glad you feel like you're kind of checking the boxes.
Yeah, year 2 and 3, we're putting a lot of the emphasis because I'm moving out, and we wanted to get the. We're going to be working with CQL, and we're going to be training 50 providers each year.
On CQL, on those
Yeah,
standards.
yeah,
So that sounds
on their
great.
tool. Yeah.
That's great. Good, good. So it doesn't look like we have a ton of takers so far. Oh, here's some
Oh,
more.
here's Marianne.
And here comes Dante. I didn't realize the waiting room was on, so I've been watching.
And Curtis from BAC just joined. Tammy from Inclusion.
Should we go ahead and start?
Yeah.
All right. Well, good morning, everyone. And good afternoon for those of you who are not on the West Coast. So today's kind of the follow-up to the community and job development presentation that we did. It seems like a really long time ago, but it's just that time's going by so fast. So checking in on that, how did people feel after leaving that? Any questions?
Yeah, and also encourage you, I believe they have most of these webinars that we did in advance of these communities of practice. We have the archive webinars, and we have all the tools associated with those. So those should be readily available to you that you can access at any time. So just want to keep you aware of those resources that you should also consider. How's it going? Anybody do any job development since we met last? Want to talk about it?
We actually, over at Valley Achievement Center, our primary job developer, took off to start his real estate journey. And so now the job development of just the interacting and getting out into the community and shaking the hands and introducing people to the services that we perform and the individuals that we service falls on myself and the program manager of our supported employment division. So this is something that I'm super interested in right now because I've dealt with this before and everything, but not to where it became like a big primary role of mine and hers, Carney. So very interested in today's topic. So looking forward to it.
Good, good. Well, it's good for us to know that, Curtis, because we can try to kind of help you with that. Okay, good. Others?
You know, this morning I stopped on the way into the office to get gas and was wearing my branded shirt here, and the manager said to me, "Oh, you're from ARC. When are you going to be bringing me someone new? Because you guys took the individual that we had here, and we loved him to death, and we want another placement." And what it was is that we found a CIE for somebody who had been in an internship. and moved him into an actual competitive employment job. But the employer's asking us for more, so that was kind of nice,
I mean, that to me is the best example of you're providing a service you're providing an employment service, and that
Uh-huh.
service is perceived to be of value to that customer, that employer who
Uh-huh.
receives that service, and they see it that way when they want more.
Right. That's why you want to keep those relationships ongoing, right? So that
Mhm.
there's opportunities for employers to tell you their thoughts or ask you those things is always great. So that's something to keep in your head there, Curtis, as you're getting started with this.
Okay, good. Yeah, thank you, Curtis. Who else? Who else has done anything with job development lately or has a specific interest or topic related to working with employers that they would like to be sure that we cover today?
One of the things that I find really interesting is that for those of you who haven't seen it, but the Institute for Community Inclusion in Boston had developed a tool called ES Coach. It must be Employment Support Coach is my guess, but it's an app that they developed. Have any of you heard of this?
Hmm.
It's an app that they developed just to get a measure of how employment staff were spending their time. And so at regular intervals, it would just send a text to employment, we participated in the pilot to employment staff, and you had to just tap of a button what you were doing. So it was either like, I'm job coaching someone, I'm job developing for someone, I'm doing something not related to employment, maybe transportation. There was just very specific options, and it was less than 2% of the time that employment staff were actually spending time out in the community, really kind of, establishing relationships with employers, and the same percentage amount of time really spending with people, getting to know them. So the majority of people's time is really going to administrative or other kinds of things. And so I think it's important to know that and be mindful as to, how you can kind of work that into your schedule a little bit differently. And that was just like that's what just the research had showed. So it's just interesting that we get pulled in more directions, I suppose, than we.
And one reason I think that number is so low is a lot of the employment specialists if they are spending time on job development, it's helping people to apply for jobs. And, they're counting that as development, and there's really no development at all in that, it's just an application that's being submitted on behalf of a person with a disability. And we feel that in most cases, that's setting somebody up to fail. And it's requiring both the employer and the person that applied to figure out whether it's a good job match. And that's our job. And
That's
so,
real similar to what we found, Dale, is that when we're just going out and having individuals fill out job applications or doing them online, we're getting almost no response.
Mhm.
It's when we're going out and meeting that employer on an occasion or three and spending a little bit of time with them, explaining what's really going on and developing that relationship, kind of like this, gas station that I went to this morning. That's really where we're having the most success, is it's front loading it, where we're spending the time developing the relationship with the employer before we look to try to create the match.
yeah. And one of the reasons I think Janine's reporting that number is so low is it is an investment. You have to, when Jeffrey's talking about front loading, in monetary terms, it means you got to kind of go out there and spend that time before you're going to see the money that's going to come with the actual placement of someone. So I think as an organization, so like Curtis, you and your boss, it's figuring out what time can be committed towards this and when? And who's going to do it?
Yeah, we actually at VAC, I used to manage our past job developers. So we made it a point where we had like even ways of keeping track of different businesses, parts of town that he was involved in. Any follow-ups, we had markings for that. Like, have you done your follow-up with them? So we got really down with it. But a lot of what was happening is that he would have like every Friday was his development day where he'd go out all day long. He's just developing on Friday. Then the other days he's working on paperwork, hand in hand with the client, teaching them job interview skills, things of that nature. But a lot of things would pop up. Employee might have a job interview that would interfere with that Friday time frame, or paperwork for paid internships that he'd have to fill out, and just different things like that would always kind of interrupt. But I 100% agree that it is so vitally important to building the relationships with the employers instead of just sitting down and hitting apply on Indeed for multiple job positions. There's so many people out there doing it, and it's just an ocean of resumes that these employers get, where the relationship building is number one for this.
Yeah, and what we also learned is only 20% of all the jobs that are available are ever posted in the first place. So you have 80% of every job, of all job seekers applying for 20% of the jobs.
And sometimes those jobs that are posted are stale. They're already been filled.
True.
Yeah, and I'm sorry, I don't mean to keep talking, but I will say that a really nice thing that's happened on a couple of occasions is where we would walk into a business and maybe they're not even thinking of a certain job that's even available. Like they're not even hiring for a position, but when we go in there and we're making these relationships and we ask the employer, like, hey, is there anything that you can think of that is taking time away from you that, someone else can come in and fulfill that role for you, to take that off your plate? It might not be a role that you guys currently have right now, but I want you as the employer to get really creative and think about that. And we want to save you time. We want to save you energy, and let our individual come in here and show you what they can do to hopefully work toward, something even of a greater role. But for now, let's just bring him in or bring her in and see what they can do in this role to help you out. So we've had a couple of things like that happen, and that was an amazing thing to see. We love seeing that.
Yeah, and the other problem with just having them apply is the two things that give you a distinct advantage when it comes to getting employers to work with you, you're not able to take full advantage of. What are those two things? One is that you have the ability to have people, what Curtis just talked about, where you can kind of come in and do an assessment. You can have them actually be on site and try some things out. And employers would love to do that with everybody. They'd love everybody just to come in who applied for a job and say, go out on the floor and do this work. Make sure this is something you love doing. Let's make sure you do it well enough that you're somebody that we want to hire. Let's try this out. And they can't. Department of Labor law doesn't allow for that, but we can based on the services that we have available. So when it's done right, employers love that. And it's a reason why they want to work with us, is they can have these experiences on site in advance of actually having to make decisions about the hiring of a person with a disability. And the other really important reason is they don't know that this person comes with support. And so if you have a chance to be in front of it, in front of the application, and they know that when the person does apply, that there's going to be somebody there to better ensure that they're going to orient well and assimilate into the workplace, that somebody's going to help them learn the tasks that are necessary to be successful on the job. And should there be a problem with this person working out, we're there. Because one of the biggest concerns they have is, I don't want to fire a person with a disability. This is a protected class of people, and I don't want to be in that position. And they therefore don't want to necessarily hire them in the first place because it may not work out. But if they knew that we were there and we have their back, that if for some reason this isn't working out, they can let us know and we can try to correct that. And if we can't correct it, we're going to help this person find a better spot that is a better fit. If they knew that in advance, I think they're more likely to accept that application.
And that said, Dale, on top of that, I think it's really important for us when we are working with employers and we're supporting individuals to be really clear and work on that fade plan from the beginning with that employer also, just so they're understanding that, yes, we're here to assist as needed, but I don't plan on always being here. And so really making sure we're communicating that and not kind of assuming that employer knows what we're doing, because I know I've gotten those calls, like, I'm not sure where your staff is. Oh, well, let me explain where they are today. So we just need to, I like to put that in writing too and review that on a regular basis.
Yeah, and we're going to touch on that because it's going to be part of the tools and strategies for workplace supports, which is the subject of our last community of practice, which is next month. But we're going to cover a little of it today in preparation for next month. Yeah, good. Okay, I want to pull on, besides Curtis, what you gave us is some good marching orders for kind of what we could spend some time on for this session. I want to see if there's others that might benefit from us spending specific time on something. Dante, if I can call on you, kind of where are you at with job development, and do you have any kind of things that you want to have us talk about, or challenges that you may have or your organization has as it relates to engaging employers?
I actually really don't work with the job development side that California Mentor has. I'm more just the day program where we just have the individual at the day program. So I don't really deal too much with the job development side.
Okay.
So I wouldn't have any information on that.
Okay, so you're providing more day services within the
Organization.
facility?
Yes.
Okay, good.
So have you started using any of the other tools that we've gone over, Dante, in terms of working with people who maybe aren't in employment services yet, but really kind of the positive personal profile and, you know, kind of some of that, the community, the skills assessment? Have you tried any of those tools with some of the people that you're working with?
Well, we've been doing more like a person-centered thing to have a whole breakdown of the individual person themselves. So because I do have a couple houses that I oversee where the individuals do want to get jobs. So we have started, trying to create something where, this is, even though it is almost like a hobby, but it's not a hobby, we still put that information on the sheets for those guys. So that way we know at least what they want to try to attend and get to. So that way, when we do go to, maybe take to a job or somewhere, they have that paper to present to a job or whatever program they want to go to say, hey, this is what I'm looking for and this is who I am.
Okay, good. And I think one of the reasons Janine's bringing that up is it's also the discovery and assessment information is also good for day services, especially if you make any efforts to kind of get them outside the facility for some of those hobbies or any kind of recreational type of things that you might do. And this could really kind of help identify. And sometimes some of those interests can turn into a vocational opportunity, even though it may in fact just be a hobby at this point. Yeah. Okay, good. Let me see, who else? Carney McGee. Is there anything around job development that you'd like to have us make sure to talk about today?
Hi, I work with Curtis Parker. So he's been actually showing me some great things. I'm learning as I go, but whatever you guys are willing to share, I am open. So share everything.
Together. He did mention your name. I didn't make the connection. Okay,
Yeah,
good.
Ernie is
Dale,
new to that position. So so she's learning and taking,
Yeah, but the cool thing is with being in this position, I still currently am the supported employment manager. So I'm able to combine some of both of them and actually see the benefit of having the job development prior to going into some of those jobs. And I have all the PIP clients currently, so just kind of getting some of that experience through working through the SEP department as well. The roles they mesh together. So I'm able to pick up and learn some things. But like I said, I am open to whatever suggestions, tips, information that you all have to share.
Okay, good.
Dale, why don't, I want to pick on Jamie for a minute here. And yeah, really, what are some of the trends that you're seeing at Kern Regional Center as the work coordinator with all the work providers or employment providers in Kern County and Mono counties? What are sort of the trends that you're seeing? Where are people having successes? Where does it seem to be that people are sort of chugging along? Just so what's your take of the current environment?
Well, I mean, we've seen a lot of success with some of those businesses that are, like one of many franchises. I think, once we are able to, and I think Dell had brought this up in one of our previous talks, that once we are able to show what the individual has to offer and they have a good experience with it, they're going to go into a management meeting with, folks from other areas, maybe East Kern area where, we may have, fewer resources out there, but at least they're getting that in their mind about the experience that this district manager had. So, I'm seeing a lot of that really good, word spreading, just getting it out there. And then just recently, we've kind of been able to break into some of those areas that maybe aren't as commonly looked at, as far as work sites. I know that over at VAC, they've been able to get into a place, and I won't name it, but where, they're actually doing clerical and, scanning information and, all those sorts of things that, is a new place that they've been able to tap into. So, those are some of the things that, although small, I view as big successes, because, if we're able to break through some places that we haven't before, and in my position, the job developers that are on the ground with the vendors that are vendorized with us, they're the ones that are actually, doing the work, pounding the pavement, making those relationships. So, and I've got the, few of them on the call here. So, and then a few of our vendors who are looking to move in that direction are also on this call. So, I think it's a good mix.
Okay. Good. All right, thank you for that. Anybody else that we want to poll? Nicole, I saw you putting in some nice comments related to best practices in job development. Anybody else have anything they want to just share or have an interest in making sure that we talk about? Valerie, anything you want to add or share?
No, I'm just here for the experience, knowledge, gain some new insight, and I'm pretty sure Jeff probably has any little issues, anything that's going on that he'd probably plug in there.
Okay, all right, fair enough. All right, anybody else?
Has anybody really tried, kind of doing your relationship map? That was one of the things that we talked about. Because, right, they always say it's not what you know, it's who you know. So having that soft introduction makes it so much easier than the cold calling.
Is that available? I didn't pull that one up.
I'll have to see. I don't know if we sent a resource, because it's really, if you think about the person that you're serving and putting them in the middle, And then, kind of branching out, who do they know, if they have family, and then who does the family know? You keep broadening it. But if you also do it for yourself and you do it with some of your colleagues, it's pretty interesting because I know as an organization, we found that just about every industry locally that we wanted to even learn information about, somebody in our organization had a connection that we wouldn't even have thought of.
Yeah, I mean, if you haven't done that for yourself, we have a tool like that too, where you can list but we just have you check different industries. And then who do you know in those industries? And then by kind of sharing that list with others that you work with, you have this already fairly broad list of employers for which you have access to, that you know somebody or you have a colleague who knows somebody. And that can be broadened from there, because then you can do that for the job seeker. You could do it for the job seeker and their family, finding out who do they know. Janine,
And
I
I like to
Oh, you
use
go
it
ahead.
with the 30-day plan, which I know was one of the tools that we shared, because I find that especially when families involved, I like to have everyone kind of signing off and saying, yes, over the next 30 days, this is what we're going to do. And it could be, I'm in community supports, but I'm going to explore these new places next week or next month. It could be somebody looking for a job, but I find that it's easy to then kind of tap into some of those other relationships from people on the team and just say, like, mom and dad, you have a connection here. Would you be willing over the next month to introduce Curtis? But then you get together and, kind of, it doesn't necessarily work all the time, 100% that everybody did what they said they would do the last 30 days, but it's a pretty nice tool to try to keep people accountable.
Well, I think what also does, it makes it immediate, because if it's in 30 days, there's more of a commitment there that these are things that we're agreeing to get done. And I think that's also what happens a lot with child development. It's easy to backburner that. It's a thing that doesn't have that. If I don't immediately take care of this, there's no consequences. And so it's easy to kind of put that off. And then you add on top of that, you have somebody who's not really nuts about doing child development. Then that 30 days easily becomes 60 days.
All the other stuff sounds a lot more interesting when you really don't like going out job developing.
And what we're trying to get across is it's fun. This is a good part of the job, not the bad part of the job. But we're also going to say it isn't for everybody. There are people that are just not going to want to or want to be good at being a job developer. And you have to pay attention to that. You just can't have people doing it because that's what's needed. You got to be sure this is a person that in fact can do it. And I don't think we do a really good job when we're hiring these folks to making it clear. We give them this long list, and then on there is job development, but what they don't understand is that's such a critical aspect of what it is you do in an employment program. So they may see it, but they go, oh, okay, that's part of what I do, but it's a big part of what they do. And planning. So we already talked about it. You put it off, but you put it off because it really is something that you need to plan for. And so Curtis, back to you and Carney. That's something that what I really heard you say is that you were proactive in planning. You had Fridays. Fridays was this person's day. That's when they're supposed to do some job development. And yet, out of that job development should come opportunities for informational interviews at a time that's convenient for the employer. And so that may not be on a Friday. If it is, you can just put that into the schedule for Friday. But if not, now there's these other appointments. And we think that's a good thing, not a bad, in that really a good job developer, let's put it this way, a good job developer, you should ask to see their calendar for the next couple of weeks. And if it doesn't have specific appointments with specific employers, then that's a person that's not working off that calendar to schedule things in advance. And that's a big part of being successful with job development. It's planning things out ahead of time. When Monday comes, having a list of employers based on the interests of your job seekers that you're going to contact that week, and having a specific day and time in which those contacts are going to be made. That should be right on a calendar. Out of that should come some informational interviews if they're using a good technique to secure those informational interviews. Now you've got it on your schedule for the next 2 weeks. I can see when is the job developer going to be making contacts for informational interviews. I can also see what informational interviews are going to be conducted. And if it's a good informational interview with some opportunities, it should lend itself to a presentation appointment. And so for this job developer, how many time slots in the next 2 weeks is built into this schedule? That's what's going to tell you the investment in job development. That's what's going to get it above 2.5%. It's because this stuff is proactively being scheduled with employers. And then that's where the investment comes.
That's really important. And I think it's really important for the management side of that to understand that that time has to be protected. Like, I think that job developers get pulled when you don't have that planned, because it's sure I can just fill in, I don't have it planned. But if somebody was on vacation, you don't have those same hours to provide someone with what they need, right? The person's just out on vacation. So we need to remember that we need to protect that time as well, that it needs to be planned and scheduled and then protected.
Right. So to build it, that's how we think you should build it. And if those appointments, and if that information isn't in the calendar, really encouraging them to be planful and I think it all starts with a good list of employers to contact. Networking opportunities, that should be in the calendar. Going to a chamber event. So I'm here in Tulsa, and I'm teaching an ACRE course, and we're at the point where we're on module 3, which is on job development. And I was walking in this morning, and in the room next to us, there was a group of Tulsa Chamber. The Tulsa Chamber of Commerce was having a meeting for its new members. So I was kind of poking my head in, and they thought maybe I was one of the folks that was new to the chamber. And so he said, "Oh, come on in, you know." And so I said, "Oh no, I'm in the room next door. We're doing some training on employment for people with disabilities." And a couple of people said, "Oh, that sounds interesting." And so I went back and was doing my training. They were having their meeting, and then we took a break. And I asked the people in my group, how many of them provide services in the Tulsa area? And several of them raised their hands. So I brought them with me, and we went back over to the chamber meeting, and we just introduced ourselves. We just said, "Hi, we're here, we're next door." And one of them wanted to join the chamber, and these were all new members. So we were able to say, "Oh, here's Kendra. Kendra's with this organization, and she wants to join you guys." So then they were very receptive, like, "Oh, hello." And then we told them what we did. We provide employment service to people with disabilities, and we'd like to conduct an informational interview to learn about their labor needs, and we may be able to help them. And both of those organizations left with some cards to then follow up and schedule informational interviews. So I say all that to just say, networking should be kind of built into these things, chamber events. And if you build in chamber events, especially if you manage job developers, you can connect the dots. You can say, "Let's see your schedule for the next couple of weeks. How many of these networking events secured informational interviews? How many of your contacts were you scheduled in your time to make those contacts? How many of those yielded an informational interview? When are those informational interviews scheduled? How many of those informational interviews lended itself to a presentation appointment?" There's a way to kind of track and manage that. And I'm saying that to you, let's say Curtis, because that's something that you're going to be doing on an ongoing basis. So you could use those strategies to kind of manage your job development. But then also for Kearney, if you're going to manage job development in the bigger picture, really having that ability to track those activities and outcomes would really give you a good indication as to, are you investing enough in job development? And with the time that you are investing, what kind of results are you getting? How many presentations, how many proposals are you able to provide?
I'm sorry not to interrupt, but it just kind of reminded me of a few weeks back, every fourth, I think it's Tuesday of the month. I'm one of the ambassadors that sits in on these chamber meetings, and you get your presentation moment. And if there's anything happening or anything going on, we've been there so often, so they're just probably like, oh, it's that girl again. But this time it was like everybody got up and they were like, hey, we got to talk to you guys. Here's our business cards. We want some people to come work for us too. So it was just them knowing that was able to spread the word of individuals that were there, that were also chamber members, say, yeah, I got a couple of my guys that are working over here and over there. They're with Bakersfield ARC, and they brought them in for me.
That's a great story. I love it. Yeah, and it shows what can happen with some of the networking that we're doing. And arming everybody in your organization with this elevator speech, with this idea that, what do you say? You don't want to talk a lot about the human and social services that you guys are providing. That just confuses the employer, because they don't really see any, they see it as a value, but they don't see it as relating to anything that they're at the chamber for. So you really want to use language that is what's in it for them. And make that ask about the informational interviews. So when you get your card, that's what you're trying to do with it, is call them or email them back to schedule your informational interviews.
I love that ambassador role. So if some of you haven't done that or heard of that before, it's a great, they probably look different in each chamber, but you're kind of one of the point people to help introduce new members to existing members, and you have some other roles. So it's, sometimes I find that it's a nice, easy in that you have a job kind of to do. You're not kind of looking to see who you can necessarily talk to right away.
Yeah, good. Okay, Janine, when it comes to managing job development, what do you find to be effective with what your organization does?
Well, I think you already said it, right? Really making sure that people are planning their time and that we're protecting that time. And then we do collect the data on, again, kind of what you were saying, how much time is this person spending? Because we look at activity records and, kind of how people are spending their time, and what is that looking like then in terms of, are they getting informational interviews? Are they getting, anybody employed? How long is that taking? And then we know from that information, if someone needs maybe more support, they need maybe some more training, maybe this isn't the best role for them, maybe they're, really kind of more interested in, better suited to do more of the job coaching than the actual development.
Okay, yeah, good. Your best producer versus maybe somebody who struggles, what have you found to be the difference? What has made for the higher producers?
It's a social thing. People who are comfortable talking about, people who are comfortably socially, who are comfortable about, kind of learning new things from employers, but comfortable enough to, kind of talk to them about themselves as well.
So good verbal skills.
Yeah, good communication
Comfortable talking to
skills.
people that they may not know that well.
Yeah. A little bit of an out of the box thinker, so that when meeting with employers, kind of can maybe see some other things and a different perspective that would be potentially helpful for that employer, being able to kind of think along those ways. I think some of our best job developers were actually small business owners at some point themselves. They didn't necessarily come from human services.
Yeah, I find that too. Like if you're looking for a job developer, but somebody does have a business or sales background, it's easier to teach them the disability stuff than to take somebody who's well experienced in terms of working with people with disabilities and teaching them the business stuff.
Those of us in social services oftentimes think in terms of programs, and employers don't want a program. They want an employee. And so I think you're right in terms of that. We have to sort of change our mindset in terms of what we're going out with. Yeah.
Yeah, language is really important.
Yes.
Terms like customized employment, that doesn't mean that much to them. Job development, they don't understand what a job, even job coaching, when we introduce somebody as a job coach, they're kind of like, well, I'm not used to, I don't know any other job coaches. So how did you come up with a job coach? But, you know, in fact, what they're doing is helping with orientation and training, and that they relate to. Oh, this person's going to help them with orientation and training. Oh, this person's going to help them retain their job. Okay, now I know what this means for me. So, you know, it's trying to stay away from human and social service terminology. Calling them a consumer, that really throws them off. I mean, you know, what's a consumer? They're job seekers or job candidates. That's how an employer would say that. Yeah, good.
And you're right, Jeff. It's really about, you know, who is the person? It's not the program. It's not, you know, I have 6 people to place, because
Mhm.
you're not going to get anywhere.
Yeah, or this is a paid internship program. No, it's we're going to place somebody to get job training, and there's you know, and how can we work together to train this individual and hopefully give them a job at the end of that training.
Right, because what happens with programs is if an employer agrees to a program, and there's a lot of them, like you said, internship programs, in the schools, they do work experience, and I would call it a program because those same kids go to the same place all semester. So that's definitely a program. When they agree to a program, they tend not to agree to hire. And when it's not presented initially as this is going to be something that's going to ultimately generate some potential employees for you. If we don't even put that on the table, the employers just think that they're helping you out. They think they're helping people with disabilities out. They think they're doing us a favor because they've accepted our program. They don't see it as a job. They don't see it as a service. They see it as they're helping us out. They're being a good community citizen. But then that won't really prompt them to want to hire necessarily. So how we set those up, I think, is really important. And we create that expectation right from the beginning. Good. Any other things around job development, managing job development? Strategies to generate. What about networking and finding new employers? Marketing your services to employers. Are any of you doing anything like that?
Yeah, I think that the chamber stuff is really good too, because I'll get emails of like ribbon cuttings around Bakersfield, and those are perfect opportunities to go and meet brand new businesses in Bakersfield. And you know, a huge important part of job developing is knowing who you're talking to when you walk into a business. There's so many times where hiring managers aren't even there. I mean, we look at all of our schedules as managers, if you are in that role, and how many times are we busy or we're not in the office. So you could walk into a business and you're talking to just, you know, an employee of there who has no say in hiring at all. So you got to have a way of keeping them accountable for following up the job developers and making sure that they are doing that, and even sending out emails, right? They're not here. Well, can I get a card? Who is the hiring manager? Making sure you're writing down that hiring manager's name so that next time when you walk in there, you have an actual name. Names mean so much. Remember the names too, right? I mean, shake hands, look in the eye, all these things that this job developer has to be able to do and have go such a long way in creating those relationships. But back to the point of the ribbon cuttings, those are huge because you know that the main players are at those ribbon cuttings. So any new businesses that are popping up, I highly recommend going to things like those. Yeah, they're very beneficial.
Good. Good. And know that anytime you're networking, your goal isn't to get a job for somebody. It really is and only is to get that informational interview. And so be real kind of single-minded in that regard, in terms of what you're after. You're not just there to get to know them, you're trying to get to know them and see, might they have some labor needs that in fact you could assist with. Okay, good. So this question is kind of like for you all. When you market your services, how do you do it? Do you get the word out there? So again, a ribbon company is a way to network. What else are you doing to kind of get the word out?
There's lots of different things, you know, social media is a big one.
You guys use social media?
Yeah, we do social media quite a bit. We've hired professionals to come in and take videos strictly on our job development program. And then we push those out, you know, I also do marketing here at VAC as well. So paying for ads and making sure that they're out there and broadcasted, you know, to the masses is something that we do. We just created, you know, because here at Valley Achievement Center, we have a supported employment program. We have the paid internship program as well. So making sure you have the marketing material for both of those, so that when you go out, you just have to be prepared. You got to have business cards. You got to have ways that when you're out there spreading the word, whether by foot or by social media or by television. We just did some commercial TV ads as well. So there's all types of ways to make it happen. And we're really trying to, you know, jump in and make sure that we're doing all the above.
Good. Wow.
I think those community fairs too, you know, where you can actually like set up a table and be
Like a
able.
job fair?
Yeah, job fairs, community fairs, sometimes they're health fairs, you know, just kind of getting out there so that, you know, you can kind of start interfacing. Maybe meet an employer that never thought about this before or considered it, you know, just exposing them to it. I think it's a good idea.
Absolutely. Yeah. And we find with the job fairs, they're
Yeah.
looking for applications and we're not necessarily there to put in an application. So it could seem like a little bit of a disconnect, but it's a great opportunity to introduce yourself, give them your card.
Absolutely.
And to say, I know you're kind of busy, this is kind of hectic here, but I'd really like to learn more about your labor needs to see how I could more specifically refer people who would be pre-qualified to work with you. I would need 20, 25 minutes of your time to conduct an informational interview. We could set that up sometime next week at a time that's convenient for you. And then and you could just go right down the line with any of the employers that you think you might be interested in, or people on your caseload might be interested in. Yeah.
How many of you recognize yourselves as part of your workforce development system? I find that oftentimes we don't identify as part of the workforce investment system, yet we are. And so finding a seat at those tables is really important as well. I think in terms of networking, there's been a lot of opportunities that I've been able to hear about and people I could meet with, just the fact that I'm at that table.
Yeah, that's good.
A lot of disability providers aren't at that table. So.
And this is a question for all of you. Are you finding that you're having to do some of your information gathering virtually? In other words, you approach them for an informational interview to learn more before you make a presentation or proposal, but they're saying, I don't want to meet in person, but I'd be willing to meet virtually. Are you guys finding that?
We don't really run into that too much, but in the emails that we do send to employers, we do attach a video of what our supported employment program does,
All
right?
right.
So
That's
yeah, making
prepared
sure you
video.
have something in your back pocket that if it is going to be somewhere of that nature, that you can send something out. Because most people nowadays, they want a 30-second clip of whatever it is, the way that our brains are wired now with social media and everything. If you can create something that can really break down what it is you're trying to pitch in the form of a media related function, I think that's huge as well.
Yeah, if you had a video that kind of demonstrated the value of them doing an informational interview with you, yeah, that'd be great. Okay. Anybody else? Janine, are you finding that you're having to do some of your work with employers virtually, or are you still able to pretty
Yeah,
much?
not
do
as
them?
much. Certainly now, things have really just kind of loosened up. I feel like people want to be out in person now.
Good, yeah, good.
Yeah.
I
But I
have
do
found
like
that,
the video idea. Those are helpful.
yeah.
Really.
But I did find that some have said, I will be willing to give you this information, but I want to do it virtually. Some people are just operating more virtually now.
Yep.
So they're not even in the business that you're trying to get into. But we have found that we could do the information kind of a two-part, where you do virtual, you ask those key questions, you learn about their labor needs, but then you say, I really need to kind of see where the actual jobs would be that we might be able to fill. I need to see the work environment and so forth. I would like to do a tour. Can I schedule that as a second part of this? And they've been pretty good about that. And then you can always ask some follow-up questions when you come in with that second part, which would include a tour. Yeah, did I see a hand up? Okay, well, we should probably talk a little bit about workplace supports then too. So that'll be the topic for the next one. And I don't know if you remember those webinars, but we talked about task analysis, systematic instruction as ways to teach people specific skills that makes them either more employable or more valuable to the employer for which they're already working. It's good things that job coaches need to know. The webinar was only 90 minutes. We only spent so much time on task analysis and systematic instruction, but there were a lot of additional resources there that you could take advantage of. We want to encourage you to kind of look at workplace supports in advance of our next get back together, last one.
Including technology. There's some really, there's some great low tech and high tech stuff out there, but it would be great to talk about some of the things that you've been using, maybe that's helping people become a little more independent, maximize their autonomy.
Yeah, and this was the workplace supports plan that we did send out as a resource that went with the webinar. And what it does is it's a blank document, but it's meant to kind of lay out what are the supports that are needed, and then who's the support for, how you can implement it, who does it have, when, does it have a cost? And we recommend that there's a work, and then of course, like Janine referenced earlier, you want this plan to fade supports. You want that in there right from the very beginning. So we think that this is something that should be set up before they start work, because some of your most important supports are going to come pre-start date and during those first few days of their job, on the job. And so these supports that are necessary at the beginning are going to be different than the supports that they might need 2-3 months into the job. And those supports might be different than what they might need 10-12 months down the road. So we feel that this is a great way to update that and to be accountable as a job coach in terms of what are you working on, what for what supports and for whom. So this is a tool that we would strongly encourage you guys to consider using if you don't have something like this on your own. And it's also great because if you have a situation where there's more than one job coach coming in, then you can be sure there's going to be some consistency between what the job coaches are doing. When we get back together too, one of the things I'm going to be interested in talking about is more often than I'd like to see happen. Some folks are losing their job, not based on them, but based on the supports that they're getting. Putting it another way, it's about 50-50. Half the time, if an employer isn't happy, it's with the employee. And the other half of the time, it's complaints about the job coach and the supports that were being provided. And so we got to make sure that we also don't have a bunch of loitering people on their phones and reading books all day at employer sites.
Right.
Yeah, that's definitely a tough one, you know. I think that you know, to try to solve all the, you know, there's the labor shortage and then the pool of job coaches that you do have to choose from. It can be very challenging. And, you know, sometimes some of those jobs are at a higher level. You know, can that job coach really be able to be a good, you know, trainer in that situation? And, you know, there's just so many things. And then when, you know, when our vendors are, you know, short staffed and they can't bring in, you know, can't consider maybe, you know, additional referrals and things like that to, you know, because they maybe don't have the supports, you know, as far as their you know, their workforce. You know, I hear a lot of that as well. I was just in a meeting statewide, and one of the larger regional centers, all the supported employment agencies in their areas aren't even, their referrals are, they're not accepting referrals right now due to staffing shortages, their own staffing shortages, whether that be job developers or, you know, job coaches. So, you know, although there's so much, you know, out there from the department as far as incentives and things like that, sometimes I feel we're not talking about the real, where the rubber meets the road, where, you know, we have a big problem out here with staffing shortages. I think another huge challenge for our individuals is transportation. No matter how we shake that down, it is rough, you know. I talked to a young lady who, you know, my hat's off to her. You know, she has to be to her work site at 10:30 in the morning, and she gets on that bus at 7 way across town, and you know, it makes her way over there, and she does it. But not everybody is going to do that, right? You know, not everybody's going to put in, you know, that effort. And, you know, she's been working on trying to find something closer to her area. You know, I get that would be the easy remedy here, but at the same time, you know, she has a relationship with the manager there, as far as, you know, things, sometimes it's not as easy to change jobs and then I think we can look at our own selves, you know. But anyways, enough of that. I just wanted to throw those things out there because I know
Yeah,
that
no, I think
those
all
are
the good-
big concerns of our vendors that are out there and actually doing the work. And sometimes I think this gets like overlooked when they're talking about the grants that are out there and the incentives that are out there. But, you know, when it comes right down to it,
they gotta have the staff, and they gotta have staff to know
Yeah.
what to do.
Right.
Yeah. Okay, anything else? Any other questions or want to be sure to address before we say goodbye? Janine, anything else for this one or for the next?
Nope, I can't think of anything. I look forward to the next time.
Yeah. Yeah, we kind of wrapping this up. Yeah, Jeffrey?
Okay, so again, for those of you who are on today, if you would like continuing education, please send something to Irene in terms of what you learned today. We'll get you the certificate for your continuing education. If you have not, I think most of you probably have signed up for the Tom Pomerantz training on the 31st through the 3rd. 2 of the days are full now. There's only a limited number of spaces left, but we still are taking some new folks into that. And then this will be one more session of this. Next week, there's also the session on residential And there will be one more session on residential too, but this first year is winding down. So the grant goes through September 30th. So we've got basically another 2 months to go. And then we're starting to look at years 2 and 3 of the project. And as I was mentioning prior to us getting started this morning, one of the big components of next year's program will be the opportunity for you to get a 5-day training on from a national organization that provides an accreditation, and it's abbreviated CQL, and they're involved with life quality, and they have like 23 different areas that they look at specifically in regards to making sure that we're promoting people's lives in the community. So looking forward to next year, although it won't be me, but it will be, I think, a continual opportunity. So please also share this. I mean, we're seem like we're dropping down in terms of number of people at these sessions. So if you're talking to other providers, let them know that the value of meeting, talking to each other, finding out things, sharing, etc.
Dante, you could share this with your folks over at Cole Vocational, the 063 group.
Yep, I was thinking that with Adam.
Yeah.
All right. Well, thank you all.
Hey, real quick,
you-
Jeffrey, I just want to say too, I know the numbers have been dipping, but for Dale, Janine, Jeffrey, thank you for doing this, because I honestly look forward to these meetings when they come up. They don't happen enough. It's good just getting involved like this and picking brains of others in the community that we service. So I really appreciate you guys taking the time to do this, even if it looks like the numbers are going down. But to me, it helps out a lot. So thank you.
Well, I think the very thing that people were talking about a few minutes ago, about how overwhelmed they are and the staffing issues and everything else, people sometimes it becomes not being able to see the forest from the trees. That you're so wrapped up in your day-to-day stuff that you're not really looking at the long term. And you need to have that focus as well, because the system is changing and the expectations are changing, and employment is becoming more of the direction that the system wants our individuals to be moving towards. And so, are you going to do it proactively, or are you going to do it kicking and screaming when the state comes out with a directive telling you by this date you got to be here? That's your choice. And what we're doing is we're trying to give people the opportunity to move in a proactive direction.
And give you some tools and strategies to use as you do that.
Yeah.
Yeah. Good.
Hey, Jeffrey, also the Thomas Pomeranz meeting, I signed up for it, but I never got like a confirmation email back. Is that normal? Because I signed up for.
Oh yeah, we didn't send out confirmations back, but if the only thing you have to be concerned about is if you have any special dietary restrictions, because we are serving lunch. So if you do, let Irene know. Other than that, nothing else you have to really do.
Yeah.
Thank you.
And
But
I do have you
thank you,
down.
Curtis, for saying that. We appreciate the feedback.
All right.
Okay.
All right. Well, take care. Bye now.
Jeff,
Yes.
can you stay on for a moment? Is
Sure.
this set up to where we could do that? Okay.
I think maybe I can. It's Janine's.
Yep, hold on. Let me